Welcome back to Action for the Soul. Hope your Passover vacation was meaningful and restful, and that you found time to truly liberate yourselves from those things that are holding you back from expressing the best version of yourself. This week's Parsha is Parashat Shemini. Vayhi bayom hashmini kara Moshe la'Aharon u'levanahu zivnei Yisrael. The Torah begins with this idea, this pasuk that says that on the 8th day Moshe summoned Aharon and Aharon's children. Right? Now, what's interesting is that for 7 days, Moshe, we know, was in the process of preparing and dedicating the Mishkan, right, in the desert. Why? Because we were trying to get to this place where we're going to go ahead and dedicate it. The 8th day was when we were going to fully dedicate and sanctify this Mishkan. Moshe then goes ahead, calls Aharon, and makes Aharon the new Kohen Gadol. Now, every morning during the 7 days of preparation, Moshe would go ahead and build the Mishkan, and then he would serve as a Kohen Gadol, and then in the evening he would go ahead and take apart and dismantle the Mishkan. On the 8th morning, he constructed this Mishkan in such a way that it would remain standing, and then go ahead and call Aharon to begin the service as the Kohen Gadol. In this way, this idea of 7 days symbolically or symbolizes Moshe as 8 symbolizes Aharon. I'll explain what that means. On the other hand, Moshe actually served as the Kohen Gadol up until a certain point at the beginning of the 8th day. And then Aharon then continued. That means Moshe called Aharon. Moshe was the only Kohen Gadol at that point, before that. And that way, the 8th day embodies a quality of unity, a unification of both Moshe and Aaron. So they were both Kohen Gadols at the same time. So what do these ideas represent? Why do we have to know this? Why do we have to know Vayhi Yom Shmini? There's only 2 of the places in the Torah we talk about 8. 8 is with the circumcision over here, Yom Shmini. The question is why? So there are 2 essentially opposite movements in life. Where there is moving outward, right? You have inward. Where you're externalizing, you're internalizing. You're either exhaling or inhaling. You're either desiring something that is outside of us or drawing inward to what's already inside of us. We're either striving or we're satisfied. We're either yearning for the future or being present. We either feel want or we feel full and a sense of completeness. But the one thing that's true is that you learn from here that a person is always in a position of movement and growth, ambition and desire, right? Or he's in a place of equanimity, stillness, perfection, right? One place is a place of yesh, of existence, the fullness of life, and the other is called a place of ayin, nothingness, the self-emptiness of life. Now, Moshe embodies this concept of ayin, detached from physicality. This is a place of emptiness, a higher intellect, a higher level of da'at, where reality is perceived as always being perfect. In that state of equality, there is no desire. In that state of perfection, a desire comes from a place of lack, sense of something is missing, and desiring to be fulfilled. Desire and other emotions are based on, perceiving oneself as being separate, limited, as someone who is lacking. However, Moshe, he transcends all these things, right? He has this, he represents the self of separation, right? Limitation, and therefore he's full of natural desire. It's actually interesting to note that if you look at the name Moshe itself, right? If you spell out the name Moshe, Mem, Shin, He. Mem is spelled Mem, Mem. Shin is spelled Shin, Yud, Nun. And He is spelled He, Aleph. Right? If you take the letters that are not found in Moshe's name, you have the word Me'ain, right? Me'ain, right? Me'ain literally means ayin, right? Detached, separate. So you see that Moshe himself, he's saying, I am ayin, right? Meaning I'm outside of this place of want, and I'm detached from the physical. This is why, by the way, later on we know in Moshe says to the Jewish people they want meat. He says, Me'ain li basar, right? From where can I get meat to these people? I'm not meat. I am outside of these things. I am outside of the ayin. Therefore, I am separated from these things. I can't go ahead and do these things. I can't be involved and engaged in these kinds of things. Now, Aharon, however, he's a man of the people. He's a lover of humanity. He is the paradigm of emotion. His life's purpose is serving in the Mishkan, a place where people feel distant desire to become closer to God, to offer a korban from the word karov, lehitkarev, to draw closer. Aharon, he is the paradigm of esh, fire that consumes all the offerings. He is in the process of engaging and rectifying the yesh of self and people. Now, from a different perspective, Aharon is connected to the 6 days of the week, right? This is avodah. He's got to go out there and he's got to work. And that's symbolized the place of yesh and emotions. And Moshe is connected to Shabbat. That's the 7. 7 is ayin. Okay, so you have something, nothing. 2 different expressions. 6 days of the week, we work hard. We aspire, we want, we're becoming. We identify with our outward selves, and we try to fill that nagging emptiness we all feel. Now, that is the paradigm of 6. It is a drive for movement, progress, and growth. Now, there's a chaser, there's a lack, which is the etymological root of the word chol, the weekday. The 6 days are, in a sense, empty like a tube. And we naturally want to fill it. We want to fill that emptiness. We don't want to be empty. We want to fill it with something. Now, after the 6 days, right, you have the 7th day. Right? Moshe is the 7th tzaddik to draw the Shekhinah in a revealed divine way, right? You have Abraham, Yitzchak, you have Yaakov, you have Yosef, you have the other tzaddikim that are there already, like Adam and Noach even, we'll fit into that, 7. And now you have him, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Levi, Kehot, Amram, and Moshe are 7. He's number 7. He is born, okay, and also passed away on the 7th day of the month of Adar, right? 7th of Adar is the day that he passed away. And therefore Moshe is symbolic of the day of Shabbat. Shabbat is the day of rest and being still. It's not a day of becoming, but rather a day of being. Shalom is wholeness, shalem, okay, completion, and basking in the light of Shekhinah. On the 7th day of the week, when that day comes along, we ought to feel as if all of our work is done. Like everything is complete. There's nothing left to do. Physically, financially, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, you have to feel like you've arrived. There's no longer any sense of desire. We've arrived. We're perfect. Everything is perfect, just the way we are meant to be. Now, there's this interesting dynamic between the 6 and the 7. They're polar opposites, right? On 6, we are creating, and we're creating, we're building, we're striving, we're lacking and desiring. And the 7th, we stop building, we stop creating, we experience stillness, wholeness, rest, and completion. So you have this dual nature, right? 6 days versus the 7th day. And you could come with 2 different outcomes, right? So one hand, you have the dominant force of the week, which is 6 days, right? The 6-day paradigm. And then on the 7th day of rest, you only create a longing and desire to go back to work. That could be one outcome of you doing your work. Oh, I worked so hard and then I just want to go right back to it. And that could feel like a tease. Therefore, Shabbat, it lingers for a fleeting moment, and then it disappears, creating an even greater yearning, desire to want to go ahead and connect back to that space of completion. In that sense, you're stopping work from growth for desire, and it produces an overall sense of an absence of Shabbat, not what Shabbat is. The predominant feeling is like pulling back a bow, right? And the arrow fly higher or crouching down in order to leap further. Like you choose how it's going to work. However, the other way it could express itself, the dominant force of the week is Shabbat, right? What paradigm you use? Are you working for Shabbat, or Shabbat there for you to go ahead and work? So Shabbat is a elevating of the 6 days of the week. Perfection, relaxation, equilibrium, In that paradigm, a person works and is involved in progress. He's moving, he's ambition, but the Shabbat element is felt throughout the whole week, decreasing the tension of ambition, decreasing his desires and longing to progress. That can create a subtle sense of quietism or even complacency. We have this ability to recognize that every day is designed for us to create this tension of yearning and striving to want something more for the Shabbat itself. That is what we want Shabbat to be. But on the surface of it, the first outcome, the first result of both Aharon and Moshe was to work constantly, to bring karbanot. Even on Shabbat, Moshe was engaged in the constant work, deconstructing the Mishkan, building, and so on and so forth. He did this for 7 days straight. Moshe did this because he wanted to awaken the quality of 7 within the work of building the Mishkan. The Mishkan should be the embodiment of all of our work that needs to be done in this world. Therefore, I'm not just working for work, I'm working for spirituality. I'm working to serve God in this world. Therefore, even on Shabbat, you can't light a fire, right? A fire, however, was still commanded to be lit on Shabbat in the Mishkan and later in the Beit HaMikdash. So, which one is it? What's your intention? What line of thinking are you using? On a deeper level, during these 7 days, right, as Moshe was assembling and disassembling the Mishkan, Moshe was also serving as Kohen Gadol in the Mishkan, right? Moshe embodied the quality of being one with completeness, right? He was someone who was he's shalem, and that's because Moshe is the embodiment of ayin, okay, the state of eternal Shabbat. The Mishkan is always present. Even when physically it is not present, it's still the power of Yesh is still there. And therefore he was in the state of rest and wholeness, even while constantly laboring and working and toiling and building and deconstructing and so on and so forth. And that alludes to this level above the polarity between these 6 work days and the 7th day of rest. So you decide how it expresses itself. Can you get to 8? While Moshe is connected with 7, Aharon is basically connected with 6. They meet in a place beyond 7 and 6, in a place called 8. That's the unity of Moshe and Aharon. That is the unification of rest and work, completion, yearning, wholeness, progress, creating, ceasing from creating. The number 6 is enfolded within the number 7, and both enfolded within the number 8. And that way, 8 is the light that permeates both paradigms of 7 and 6. 8 is this mesh of these 2 realities. There are 2 major mentions of 8, right? We said earlier, one is Milah, and the other is for the completion of the Mishkan, right? There's this bridge of taking something and making it something more. We want you to, it says, the Pasuk says, Vasuli Mishkan v'shachanti b'tocham, right? That refers to our efforts to participate, our desire to want to connect to God at a higher level. Most people walk through life feeling this sense of overwhelming emptiness. They are trying to fill that emotion and spirituality, that need, with all kinds of things like money, power, fame, even knowledge. The problem is that trying to fill anything with something that is empty, right, or external things, it leaves you even more unsatisfied. And the reason why one feels emptier as the more one attempts to fill one's with someone, the more someone tries to fill himself with more empty objects, okay, right? He's just gonna have he's not gonna have any of his desires filled. His desire is gonna expand and more because it's not being satiated. As that vessel expands, therefore the emptiness of that vessel expands as well, and his cravings and yearnings expand along. That is also comes with a tremendous growing frustration. That kind of appetite can never be pacified or quenched. It's bigger and more extreme and so on and so forth. But the only way we could do this properly is if we tap into and revealing the wholeness and rest that was already there. There was something that already exists, a striving and desiring and attaining from a healthy place. Only internally produced satisfaction comes without the anxiety, the insatiable desire and addiction of depleting grief and emptiness. So we have to establish this internal, unconditional ability to connect to something that is more. That is the paradigm of 8, which we're trying to get to. This would explain maybe this unsanctioned fire that came down. Midrash says that there were 2 pillars that God created, and the angels are like, what are they for? And they're like, here for the sons of Nadav and Avihu. We know they died in this week's Parsha. And they said, well, if that's the case, well, what was the purpose of creating the world? Everything has to do with your intention. We could understand this maybe a little bit more from the splitting of the sea. Why did the sea split? Moshe said, I went to the sea said it's not splitting. They said, okay, Hashem said, I'll put my right hand on you. And then when the sea saw the hand of Hashem on Moshe, it split. What did it really see? Vayonos hayam, right? The sea withdrew. It saw Moshe carrying the coffin of Yosef. Well, why did the bones of Yosef scare away the yam? Well, who is Yosef? Yosef was Yaakov's son. We know that Yaakov loved Yosef. We also know that his intention of when he got married was to bring Yosef's soul into the world. He was supposed to be the Bechor. And therefore, Yaakov is teaching you that intention is everything. Okay? When the sea split, it said to Moshe, why should I split for you? I was created the 3rd day, you're created the 6th day, you're nothing. Right? When Yaakov treated Yosef differently, he was showing that it's not about the action, it's about the intention. And therefore, even though Moshe was created later in the timeline, Yosef represents the intention. Moshe says, hello, I'm carrying the bones of Yosef. Yaakov taught us already that the whole purpose of life is what you intend. What do you really want to do? I want to be great, but I'm not there, that's fine. Your intention is everything. That's all that Hashem wants. And therefore, when the sea sees, when the Yam Suf sees the bones of Yosef, it runs away because it understands that Hashem created the world for man, not for the water. And therefore, it recognizes the intention and it splits this. Other than a view, we know what their intentions were, but we know their intentions were, according to many midrashim, was about their self-gratifying themselves, this filling themselves up with more emptiness and not truth. May we be blessed with the ability of using our time, not to work so we could have Shabbat, but we could bring Shabbat into the week and elevate it with things that are meaningful and whole and live a life of excellence and greatness. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. I'm sorry if it was so complicated today, but I hope you appreciated it and looking forward to continuing the conversation.